Okay, and welcome back to the channel. Well, if it's your first time here, my name's Andrew. If it's not your first time here, thanks for coming back. It's greatly appreciated. Well, yesterday I did a video, which was the first part of two videos, looking at the basic settings for using the photography mode on the new DJI Mini 5 Pro. And today I'm going to be looking a bit more in depth, but this time I'm going to be covering all the modes, which is listed under the sphere option when you go into the controller. Now, yesterday when I did the video, I was further down the beach, there was a lot of spray and wind, and that got onto the lens of the camera. So today I'm just sitting in the car and doing it all from here. So my apologies for not actually being outside. Now, when you go into the sphere option, you're going to have 5 different options for taking photos. The first one's going to be free, then you're going to have wide, 180, vertical, and of course sphere. And I'll go through each individual option with you and show you exactly what it does, and then compare that with the original image of just a still photo of the beach. Now, you can use all these modes in either auto or pro mode. It doesn't make any difference, so you've still got some control over the final image, but you're going to have restrictions in relation to the gimbal itself. Now, it doesn't matter if you're in horizontal or vertical, whichever one you're in, as soon as you go into the modes, the gimbal is going to rotate back to the horizontal position. Also, when you are using these modes, you haven't got to worry too much about space, because obviously the drone is staying in a fixed location. It's just rotating itself or the gimbal around a central point to get the image that it's trying to capture. Now, one thing to bear in mind when you're using any of these modes are moving objects or people, because it could be that someone walks into the frame and then they're going to appear at several instances throughout that image. So just bear that in mind. The less movement in the surrounding area, the better the image is going to be. Now, with all the modes, what they do is they take a series of photos and then they merge them all together to make one final image. You've got the wide option, which is just going to give you a wider field of view, both horizontally and vertically, than you get from a standard photo. With vertical, that's great for tall buildings, but bear in mind the location of the drone when you start. If you start at the bottom of a building, then you're going to have an image which looks like the building is actually tilting over towards you. So if you want to get a more true perspective, try and get the drone roughly halfway up the building, and that's going to give you a nice even definition when you take the photos. Now, using these modes for photography can give you some really nice results, and they are quite fun to use, especially the sphere mode, which is one of my favourites. But you need to bear in mind, you're not going to get the results you may expect when you're using two of the modes, and that's going to be free and 180. You've got the 180 panoramic, and that's going to give you 90 degrees either side of the drone. But because you're using that 180, the aspect ratio of the height to the width is going to be reduced, so you're going to get a narrower height image compared to the actual width. So when you use 180, wherever the drone is looking, that's going to be the central point. And then the drone's going to go 90 degrees to the left, then 90 degrees to the right, and that's going to give you the panoramic 180 view. Now, although the horizon is going to be straight, the rest of the image is going to be distorted on the ends. And it's going to give you a type of boomerang effect when you're looking at it. It's not going to be where you see some panoramic photos where it's all nice and straight going the right way along, because to do something like that, you'd have to take an image with a drone, move it across, take another image, move it across. With this, it's the actual gimbal and the drone that rotates, so you're going to get this curvature coming into your images. The free option is very similar to the 180, but this time you set the start and end points of the drone itself. Now, because you're doing this, the aspect ratio is going to change depending on how far these endpoints are. Now, the closer they are together, the squarer the image is going to be. The further they are apart, you're going to get a long, narrow photo. So just bear that in mind as well when you are doing something which is wide, because you're not going to get much detail into it. So sometimes when you are using the free, it's better to do less than the 180. Now, when you're using free and 180, the results are going to be quite similar. The only difference is that with the 180, the start and the end point of the drone is already predetermined, whereas if you're using the free, you decide where you want it to start and where you want it to end. So you just need to bear that in mind when you are using free and 180. Now, sphere is possibly my favourite mode, because it allows the drone to take a series of images and then puts them all together in one file. You can then go into the app, reposition it so you get the frame that you want, and then export that single frame as your photo. So it does give you a lot of flexibility when it comes to actually selecting the portion of the image that you want to use. And this is the part where I say I'm not sponsored, so if you could do the bell and the notification thing, that would be great. There's also a link below for buy me a coffee, and any funds I get from that are going to go towards the new DJI Neo 2, which is due out next month. And that's going to enable me to give a proper review of it, and not like some people who got the drone for free, where they're going to have to toe the DJI party line. This way, it's going to be my honest review of that drone when it comes out. So I'm going to launch the drone and then go through each individual mode with you and show you exactly what it does, and then compare that to the original image so you've got a better idea of what you're going to get when you are using these modes. So I'm going to set it up to 180 and I'm going to click start. So you can see now that it's doing 21 different photos. And when that's completed, it's going to merge all the photos together into one panoramic view. If I turn the drone around, you can see that it's a relatively straight beach. Now you're not going to get a panoramic view which does the beach straight like that. It's going to be more of a boomerang effect in the actual image. I'll show you that in a moment. Now I'm going to go back to free. Now free works in a very similar way to the 180, but this time you can actually set the individual parameters of where you want it to start. But what I've learned is that if you do, say, a wide one, say I start there, so I'm going to press the C1 button, and then I'm going to go back right down the other end of the beach and press the C1 button again to lock it in. And then I click on start. So you can see now on the screen the area that the drone's going to capture. And it's going to take 12 photos for this. Okay, and I put the drone back to the original position. Now if I go into album, and you can see this is the free one I just done, and you can see from here that it's very, very narrow, and it's also got that boomerang effect. Now that's going to be the same in 180 and free. So as I said, you're not going to get a straight, true representation of what you've got. Yes, the horizon's level, but the actual surrounding area is curved. And again, if I go into the normal 180, you can see the photo is wider because it's been narrower than the preset free one. So just bear that in mind when you are doing 180s. Okay, so I'm going to go into the wide angle. And again, this time you can see that it's going to take 9 photos. And again, if I go back into the album, so this time you have got a wider image and you've got none of that distortion you're going to get with the 180 or the free. So now I'm going to go into the vertical. And this time you're only taking 3 photos. And if I go back into the album, so you can see then you've got a very narrow image, which again I suppose you could crop down for using in things like social media, that type of thing. So now I'm going to go into sphere, and you can see that it's got 33 photos. And then it's going to put them all together into one image. Now when you are doing the sphere mode, you can actually take the file that it completes and put that into a third-party software that deals with 360 photos. For example, the Insta360 app or the Theta app. Right, okay, so I'm going to go back now into the photo album. So when you go into the album as well, you can see on the bottom left of each individual image what the actual mode was. So you've got the sphere, the vertical, the wide angle, the free, and then the 180 as well. Now if I select the sphere, you can see then it's brought me up the 360-degree actual image. Now if you click on the photo viewer, you do a little animation of going in. So if you're going to scroll, you can just move the image around like that, and then you can select screenshot, and that's going to take a low-res image for you. If you're going to globe, it does a similar thing, but obviously it's just circular, and again you can scroll around. The invert is just going to give you a wormhole effect, but again you can play about with the image as you want. But my personal favourite is planet, and this is going to give you a tiny planet that you can adjust and play with. Right, so I'm going to go back to one of the images I took yesterday, which was this one. Now I took this when the drone was round about 2 feet off the ground and about 7 to 8 feet away from the sculpture. And then when you go into the planet mode, you can see that it does a nice effect of the ball with the sculpture sticking up. So that's nice. If you want to do something where you want to make the tall item really prominent, get the drone low down, because it's going to set it off against the background, in my case the blue sky, and I think that does some really, really nice effects. It's nice as well if you're doing it with yourself quite close, because it means that you will be sticking out against the background. And here's a similar one I did with some penguins as well yesterday. And obviously the penguins weren't that tall and you had the buildings behind them, so they don't stand out that much. But you can see with a tall brown building how much that is sticking out from the sky at the back. Okay, so that's the end of the video. If you did find it useful, if you could do the like and subscribe thing, that would be great. There's also the option, as I said earlier, for buying me a coffee. That would be greatly appreciated too. If you want to know anything else in relation to waypoints, hyperlapses, cruise control, that type of thing on the DJI Mini 5 Pro, there's lots of other videos on the channel in relation to those. And if you've got any questions in relation to the DJI Mini 4, the Mini 5, the Neo, or the Hover X1 Pro or Pro Max, let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do for them as well. But thanks very much for watching. Bye.